and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne, and today we are talking about what I'm going to read in October. To celebrate the coming of October, I have here in my cup a homemade pumpkin spice latte, which I made from homemade pumpkin spice syrup using some pumpkin puree that had been in my freezer. But instead of pumpkin spice seasoning, I used this chai spice seasoning from the King Arthur Flour Company. And I love this stuff, but it's a lot stronger than pumpkin pie spice. So a little bit goes a long way, but it goes great with this kind of stuff. So good. I also have my very first pie pumpkin of the year that I bought. It's tradition. The first pie pumpkin that I see out in the wild, I buy it. It comes home with me. This was the one that had the privilege and honor of coming home with me from Trader Joe's. And my pie pumpkin spice apron thing here. So we're just celebrating all the October things, all the pumpkin things, getting ready for the season. And of course, getting ready for the fun reading that comes in October, namely Victober, which plays a huge part in the BookTube community reading, at least a good segment of us. This is so good. Anyway, let's talk about what I am going to be reading in the month of October, hopefully. September, the less said the better. I didn't get to much in September. And it was not a great reading a month for me. And so who knows what's going to happen in October. Because September was kind of not that great for me, I'm really wanting to keep my actual commitments to a minimum and leave a lot of space for mood reading and reading what I want, which means that aside from a few specific things, I have a lot of possibilities, options that I will choose from as the month goes on. So to begin with, for my Reading the Classics challenge, the prompt for October is sci-fi or travel. And of course, this should be a classic sci-fi or time travel story. And to be honest, this is one of the prompts that I did for myself to broaden my horizons because I don't have a lot of experience with either of those genres in classic literature. And so I don't have many recommendations for you. So I'm going to just do that segment really quick. I can just recommend a couple authors that are all on my short list that I picked from. And you can choose from them as well, just ones that I know of. You probably already know of them, so it's probably not a great deal of help. But first of all, H.G. Wells had quite a few sci-fi time travel stories that would be options for this prompt. Some titles, I think like The Time Machine, Invisible Man, those are off the top of my head, so could be incorrect, but I'll put the actual titles in the description box. Jules Verne, he has like, not necessarily time travel. I'm not sure that even technically is sci-fi per se, but I think it would fit for this prompt. Like, was it 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I've not read, but Around the World in, how many days was it? However many days, I don't know. But that one I have read, and I did like that one. That was a good one. And C.S. Lewis, his famous sci-fi trilogy, also is an excellent option. I've not read it, of course, but like I said, I've not read many of this genre at all, but it is an option and probably a pretty good one, actually, from what I've heard. One of these days, I'll read it, I'm sure. I just haven't yet. So those are off the top of my head, and they're the most well-known ones. I figure I should read the really well-known popular ones before I start branching off into lesser known examples of the genre. So those are my recommendations, such as they are. I'm sorry, I don't have more for you in that regard. For the scavenger hunt element of my Reading the Classics challenge, the 3 items are a sailing vessel. And this can be loosely interpreted because, especially in older sci-fi books, they may have referred to different vessels as sailing vessels. It can be like an actual ship sailing on the water of some kind, or like a plane sort of thing, depending on the situation in the story. And then a time machine. And the last one is a mad scientist. So interpret that how you will. There aren't any challenge police here, so you can interpret them very broadly. Those are the scavenger hunt items to be looking for as you are reading your book or books for the prompt. And then the challenge element is to share a book meme on social media. So especially if you're on Instagram or Facebook, throw out some memes there. I'm going to try and do that myself on Instagram, and also, if I can, on the YouTube community posts and in my Discord server, sharing some book memes. You also can share them on my Discord server as well. We can share our favorite book memes that we come across. There are a lot of fun ones out there. So I am looking forward to that one. That will be a lot of fun. But as for the actual book that I'm going to read for the Reading the Classics challenge, I'm going to read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I've been wanting to read this for a long time. It is on my 50 by 50 list. It's not that long, so it's not that great deal of a commitment. And it's just so culturally, the word that comes to mind is ubiquitous. Like, it's just everywhere. Like, it's definitely influential in our culture overall. The concept, the trope is something that we all immediately recognize. And I've just never read the book, which is silly. So I really want to read the book to get that background for the cultural context. And I am excited because I'm going to be buddy reading it with Faith at Faith in Books. She has already mentioned some of her books that she's going to be reading in October. And this was one of them she's planning to read in the second part of October. And I said, hey, it's also on my TBR. Can we buddy read? And she very graciously agreed. So Faith and I are going to buddy read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I'm really looking forward to that. For the Jane Austen 250th anniversary birthday, hosted by myself and Charlene, the prompt for, or the book rather, for October is The Mysteries of Udolpho. Now this is in preparation for reading Northanger Abbey in November, because Jane Austen, as you probably know, was very highly inspired by novels such as The Mysteries of Udolpho when she wrote Northanger Abbey, kind of spoofing on them in a sense, but also there's a sense in which she's validating them as well. So anyway, Northanger Abbey is a really fun read, but it's very helpful to have some context of what sort of book Jane Austen is talking about in Northanger Abbey, because it's a very prevalent part of the storyline. I have not yet read The Mysteries of Udolpho. I've read another book by Anne Radcliffe, Romance of the Forest, and I enjoyed that. It's a lot of words. It's a very wordy, Victorian sort of novel, you know, like very descriptive, etc. But when I read Jane Austen's bookshelf earlier this year, she was talking a lot about that style of Anne Radcliffe, and it was very, very highly lauded in her day. People considered her writing to be very poetic, and they compared her to great poets of the day and of the past. And so this time, as I'm going to read The Mysteries of Udolpho, I want to really appreciate that aspect of it. I want to take the time to linger over her descriptive settings and the paragraphs that just seem like, okay, can we get to the story instead of talking so much about the scenery or the setting or the emotions or whatever. I'm going to take the time to really savor those and immerse myself in those descriptive passages and really enjoy them as a sort of poetry, like a prosaic sort of poetry. And I'm hoping to enjoy it at least as much as I enjoyed The Romance of Forest, hopefully even better. So that is going to be the reading for October. And I think that The Mysteries of Udolpho is a decent sized novel. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have an actual copy. I will be getting mine from the library. I'll be borrowing from the library. I've already put it on hold, so I should be getting it very soon here. But I do think it is a longer one, so it will probably take a good chunk of the month to read that one. As for the other yearly reading challenges that I'm doing for Chantel's Read Your Shelf Challenge, the theme is history. And I love historical fiction. I love history. I love reading about various times in history, various time periods. And the vast majority of the books on my TBR, the physical books on my shelf, are historical, like they fit with this prompt of history. So I have so many options, so many. So I have a whole stack here that I'm going to show you in a second, and I will be choosing from this stack at some point in October, but I am either going to go by my mood, or I'm considering doing a separate video, like try a chapter tag, or judging by the first sentence or the first paragraph, something like that, to narrow down this stack and choose which one I actually will read. I am not going to take the time to determine that now because I really don't know what I'm going to be in the mood for or what I will feel like reading. So I'm going to leave that a little bit to chance and my mood and time. But I will show you the stack that I will be picking from, because I did narrow down to 7 books that for whatever reason are books that I really do want to read, that kind of stick out among the rest on my ginormous TBR pile. And so I'll show you what they are, and I'll tell you why they are higher up my priority list for being on my TBR. First of all is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. Now, I know, like Dia, for example, really enjoyed this book. It's a chunker, so it's a bit of a commitment, which is one thing that has held me back from it. I read Dracula last year in October, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it so much. And this is kind of supposed to be the backstory of that. So I have been really excited to read it since then. I just haven't made the time for it. So I do want to make the time for it, and October seems like a good time to do it, as well as the history prompt. I mean, The Historian. I mean, it seems perfect, right? So that's definitely on the short list. This is The Masque of Honor by Sharon Virts. I met Sharon Virts at a local book festival a year ago, and she is a local to me author. She lives in my town. She and her husband are restoring a mansion there that, I don't think it's that one, but it looks a lot like the one in the picture actually. She writes fiction based on local history. So this is Masque of Honor, about General Armistead Mason and John Jack Mason McCarty, brothers-in-law, second cousins, and descendants of founding father George Mason IV, who was, his name is attached to George Mason University. Of course, he was the father of the Bill of Rights, etc. A very important figure in Virginia history and in U.S. history as a whole. And so these gentlemen are related to him. The whole family was from Virginia. So my sister gave me a copy of this book. I've not read anything by Sharon Virts, but since I met her last year, I have been wanting to. Again, I just haven't made the time for it. So this is definitely also at the top of my list, as are her other books. She has 3 or 4 other books that I do want to read as well. I read Caroline by Sarah Miller, which was about Ma Ingalls. It was the story of the Little House on the Prairie told from her perspective. Read that a couple of years ago. Loved it so much. Such a great book. Really loved it. And she has a lot of books that are very similar in that they are written about historical figures in America, most of them women, and they're not all based on novels. Like that one, she took the novel Little House on the Prairie and she reworked it from Ma Ingalls' perspective. They're not all starting from that way, but they are about real characters or real situations or episodes in American history. Miss Spitfire is about, what is her name? Annie Sullivan. Yes, Annie Sullivan, who was the teacher of Helen Keller. So this is not so much about Helen Keller as it is about Annie Sullivan, who is a person that has always fascinated me. I've always admired her as someone who has been a teacher and or interested in teaching my entire life. Even when I was little, Annie Sullivan was someone that I just admired her so much. So kind of one of my heroes, if you will. So I am looking forward to reading this. This is a YA, I believe. I think some of Sarah Miller's titles are classified as YA. Yeah, or Athenian books for young readers. So anyway, Miss Spitfire. Then I have The Personal Librarian, which I have wanted to read since my sister read it a couple of years ago and mentioned it to me as a book that she really enjoyed. And I also went to JP Morgan's library earlier this summer, where she worked for many years for JP Morgan. She was the librarian. And I just think that her life was very fascinating. Her job was very fascinating. And I know that there will be a lot about books and things. And so of course that's very appealing. So this is another one that is on the short list that I really want to get to sooner or later. And then another one, author that I read at the reading event last year, the book festival, and she was there again this year. So I got to talk to her again. I bought this one last year when I visited her, but then I ended up reading another book that I borrowed from the library by her, and it was very, very good. That was the second or third book I had read from her. So I do want to read more. I want to read her entire backlist. This one, Ladies of the Lake, is about 4 women who are from Prince Edward Island, and it's during World War I and things that happen there, and then it goes through time 17 years later. Anyway, it's historic. It just seems interesting to me about these 4 ladies. It's a beautiful cover. I just really want to read this. I want to read more of Cathy Gohlke's books. I want to read this one because her next book I really want to read, which is set in my area, like not very far from me. She lives not that far from me. So I really want to read that one. But first I want to read this one, which is the one that came out before then. So yeah, gotta read this one so I can get to that one. That's one reason why it's more urgent. And then this has appeared on my TBR multiple times. I've read other books by this author and really enjoyed them. This is The Secret Diaries of Charlotte Bronte by Siri James. I've even started this book. You can see I have a bookmark in there. I just haven't read it yet. October seems like a great time to read anything about Bronte. So I just really need to actually read it, and I don't think it will necessarily be a hardship. It's kind of longish, but I think it would be very interesting and enjoyable. I just haven't read it yet, so I'm just waiting for time, that's all. And then finally, the other book that makes it to the short list is this one by Kelly Goshorn, A Love Restored, which I just met the author. I had never heard of her or her books before. She lives locally to me. She was at a book festival that I went to recently. She writes it's called Family Friendly Fiction. I think it's Christian. She's writing from a Christian perspective. And this one is set like in my area 150 years ago. How cool is that? I really love that whole concept. And there's a lot of history in my area, and like colonial history, Civil War history, all of it. So I am just really anxious to dig into this book and read by this author that I was introduced to a couple weeks ago. That made it to the short list as well. That's my short list for the history category. We will see what I actually end up reading from in the month of October. The other reading challenge that I do every year is the Christian Fiction Reading Challenge by Jeanette at Jane Reads. And her prompt was to read a book from one of the Christie Awards finalists. So the Christie Awards are Christian Fiction Reading Award or Book Awards. And just yesterday, actually, they revealed all the finalists. So I went on the website to see what books made the list of finalists, and there were some that I've already read, actually, some that I definitely want to read. There were 2 that stuck out to me as possible options for October, and for practical purposes, I'm probably going to end up with one of them, but I'll tell you what they both are, and both might happen. The first one is Between the Sound and Sea by Amanda Cox. Now, that one I don't actually own, but I have read a book by Amanda Cox, The Secret Keepers of Old Depot Grocery, I think it was called. And it was so good. Such a great book. So well written. Really enjoyed it. And I've heard really good things about all her other books. They all sound like exactly the sort of books that I love, like in more of a literary style, more women's fiction than strictly romance or anything like that. So I am looking forward to reading Between the Sound and Sea, which is her most recent book, eventually. It's also on my short list for October, but none of my local libraries carries it, and it doesn't appear to be on Kindle Unlimited. So I would have to buy a copy somewhere. I don't know if I will do that or not. I might see if I can find it on Pango or Thrift Books or somewhere. I probably won't buy it new. I don't like to buy new books because I don't necessarily want to keep them. So probably won't buy it new, but I'll see if I can get my hands on it or not. But the other option is Night Falls on Predicament Avenue by Jaime Jo Wright. Now the truth is, I don't necessarily want to read her most recent book. I'm trying to work through her backlist, and I read one earlier this year, but I really need to read several by her. So I want to read more by her, but not necessarily her latest, but whatever. That was a Christie finalist for this year, so I can read it to go with this challenge. And also my library has it, so I put on a hold so I can have that in my hands. So in the end, that's probably the one I will end up reading, only because I can get it in my hot little hands and read it. So those are my must reads. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of those history novels. The Mysteries of Udolpho is a definite, and Night Falls on Predicament Avenue probably. So those are my only definites for October, the only ones I'm absolutely going to read. And as you can see already, there's a great deal of mood reading possibility in those must reads already. So I'm really leaning into the mood reading in October. And I'm going to kind of have the same approach with Victober. Now, Victober, this is the 10th anniversary, which is amazing. That's gotta be one of the longest running reading challenges on YouTube, and I think that's awesome. And I love how popular it is and how much everybody just gathers around reading Victorian literature every October. I think that's amazing, and I am excited about it myself as well. There are 10 hosts and 10 challenges to celebrate the 10th anniversary, which again, I think is amazing. And I already printed out the graphics so that I can, I haven't made my journal spread yet, but I'm going to, because I definitely want to be participating. However, normally I would go through and I would find books to go with the prompts, or at least books that fit multiple of the prompts and kind of make it all work. But I just felt a little overwhelmed at the very thought of that. And also Victorian literature can be a lot more dense than regular reading. And so the month of September has not gone well as far as that goes. I don't know if October is going to be any better. So I did not want to make myself a lengthy list of books that I'm just not gonna have the time or inclination to read when it gets right down to it. So I am going to just choose some books. I'm gonna have, similar with the history prompt for Chantel's challenge, I have a stack of Victorian literature and related books that I'm going to be choosing from. And I know that these books will fit in some of the prompts. Some of them are quite broad. So I know that these books will fit into some of those prompts one way or the other. So I will retrofit the books into the prompts instead of like working through everything and trying to get organized ahead of time, which is my normal MO. This is very unlike me, but this is how we're going to do it in the month of October, okay? And we'll see at the end what I end up actually reading from the whole list. I also took into consideration other goals that I have in mind. I have authors that I want to read to zero, classic authors. I have books that I want to reread this year or at some point, because I haven't gotten very far in that list for this year. So I have some books like that, some goals, some other reading goals. I have my 50 by 50. Some of these books are on that list. So I pulled from other lists of mine so that I can accomplish more than one goal at a time, no matter which one of these I choose to read. So first off, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde definitely is going to fit into some of the prompts of Victober Readathon, and that 100% fits. So, and that's definitely going to happen. So there's one book at least. Definitely gonna be reading that. I'm trying to read all of Dickens, and it's been a couple of years. I read Little Dorrit, I think 2 years ago for Victober. So it's time to read another one. And the next one that I have been wanting to read is The Old Curiosity Shop. Now this is longish and it's Dickens, so I know it's going to be dense, but I do want to read it. Alternatively, I may read A Tale of Two Cities because my son in 11th grade, he read that for school, and I kind of want to read the books that he's reading for 11th grade as well. And so I would love to read that one as well. So A Tale of Two Cities or The Old Curiosity Shop. Either one, they're both on my 50 by 50 list. And also I want to read all of Dickens, so it fits other goals that I have. So either way. Mary Elizabeth Braddon, I read a book by her last year, The Doctor's Wife, for Victober. And this year I really want to read Lady Audley's Secret, which is what I was going to read last year, but they did The Doctor's Wife as a group read. And so I figured I'll just read that one. It's more fun to read it with other people. But I really do want to get to Lady Audley's Secret, which I believe is her more famous book. And I enjoyed The Doctor's Wife, so I think that I will probably also enjoy this one. And I am looking forward to it. I've been wanting to read it for a long time. I finally got myself an actual copy. I picked it up at a used bookstore, I think somewhere along the way. So this one is definitely on my short list. I don't know if I'll get to it, but it's definitely on that list. And then Shirley is on my list of books that I want to reread. I have read everything by the Brontes at least once. But Shirley, I read a long time ago. In fact, I think I was a teenager when I read Shirley. And so I remember very little about it, very little. So it is time for me to reread it. And Miriam very graciously and generously sent me a copy of it a year ago or so. And so I want to get to it. It is a little bit longer, but it's also Charlotte Bronte, so very enjoyable. I remember loving it when I was a teenager. Not as much as Jane Eyre, but I did enjoy it. I think it has more of a more mature, not that Jane Eyre wasn't mature, but other than that, I don't really remember much. So I do want to reread Shirley, but it is kind of long, and there's a limit to how many long books I can read in a month. So that's perhaps not as definite as some of the others, but it is a possibility. And then I know one of the prompts is to read something other than a novel, and I have this gorgeous, gorgeous copy of Tennyson, the works by Tennyson. I love that little gold gilt engraving on the front. This was published in 1892, I want to say, this volume. Originally published in 1884, but this is an 1892 edition. Oh no, sorry, an 1894 edition. Just all of his poetry, or almost all of his poetry. So I can just pick what I want from here. At this point, I don't really know. Gonna mood read my way through that, but I definitely want to read some Tennyson. I remember when I was young, Tennyson was one of my favorite poets, and I have read poems by him and really loved them. So I want to read something else, more by Tennyson. So I will be reading from this volume, and that is more likely to happen because it's not a big commitment to read like a whole thing. Just to read some poetry is easy to do. And then finally I have What Jane Austen Ate and Charles Dickens Knew, which I've been wanting to read for a long time. And I picked this up at a used bookstore, and yeah, I just want to read it. There's a lot in here, so maybe I would only read some sections of it. I don't know. But I do eventually want to read this. It's From Fox Hunting to Whist, The Facts of Daily Life in 19th Century England. So those are my list of books that I will be choosing from in Victober. I may or may not come across some others. I know Anthony Trollope is one that I've been wanting to try for a while. I have some of his, but he wrote a lot of series, and so I don't think I have anything that is first in a series. So I don't have any on hand of his that I want to start with. However, I do want to read some by Anthony Trollope, so who knows? Things can change between now and then. I may pick up something by him or decide to read one of his books. That's definitely a possibility. And The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins is another one that I want to reread. I remember reading it in a matter of days when I was a teenager and loving it so much. But it is, again, I think a longer one, and I don't know that I have time for it now at this stage of life. But it's on my reread list of books that I want to reread. So that would also be accomplishing that goal. It's a possibility too, if I can get access to it. So all of those are my possible options for the month of October. Let me know what you are reading and how are you approaching your reading in October? Are you mood reading? Are you going by a TBR? Did you pick and choose something for each of the 10 prompts? I've been watching some videos where people have picked an individual book for each of the 10 prompts for Victober, and I think that's amazing. And I think that everyone who does it is going to have an amazing month of reading ahead of them. But for myself, I felt a little overwhelmed with the thought. So are you feeling overwhelmed by your plans for October or by the possibilities? Or are you just going to mood read? Tell me what you're planning to do in October and in the comments, and we can chat about our plans, and I will see you next time.